All right, welcome back to the third part of the cultural homogenization lesson. And we're going to look at a couple of last sources here. This is a source we were looking at before the lunch break, and definitely it reminds us of the importance of looking at details within the source. So you caught it, I didn't catch it, but you definitely caught it, that when you look at the details within the source, one of the key details is the license plate of the car says 2030. So what we know is that this cartoonist is suggesting that this is a possible future for us. So this is future casting, this is a prediction of the future, and the suggestion is that if we continue to enjoy the lifestyles that we have now, this is our future. And as you guys pointed out, there's lots of dominant figures in the source. Many of them are connected to cars or the energy used to drive cars. So one of the things that this source creator singer is questioning is our car-dependent lifestyle. The rethinking of city planning to be more pedestrian-friendly would be part of Singer's agenda. And even rethinking things like our consumption. You know, maybe we need to buy local. Maybe we need to live closer to work. Maybe we should work from home. These are all parts of that conversation that the cartoon is meant to inspire us to have. So one of the things the cartoon is meant to do is create an opportunity for some kind of metacognitive thinking, right? Let's think about our current existence and contemplate, are we living a good life? And is this sustainable? And the cartoonist is saying no. That in the future, we are seen as casualties to the things that we've been branded by and that we began to worship. So the gods of today, the things we worship today, are things like that Smurf that has a McDonald's logo on it. That's a neat combination for sure. Corporations like Michelin and Lego and Nestle and Shell, and the flag with the euro on it is also a representation of our consumption and our consumer-driven societies. Again, we have that juxtaposition like in the last source where we have stuff happening in the background as well. Well, this is fun. I'm going to talk to Kara Hetlinger while we're recording a YouTube video. Hi Kara, you're on YouTube, what's up? Yeah, I'm recording a video right now. Yeah, no worries. I haven't even tried. You've marked stuff? Okay, no, I don't think we can. Yeah. I don't think we have access yet. Cool. All right, yeah, bye. Well, that was fun. So going back to the source, and you might be saying, well, why don't we just, hit end and re-record? Why would we re-record, right? Life happens. Let's just continue. Because we're almost done the source. Other things to consider with the source might be that because the date is in the future 2030, maybe the cartoonist is hopeful that we can have what is called a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift is one of those terms that I'm going to use a lot this year. So I'm going to write it on the board. I'm going to walk by the mic there and, oh, that's the guy that's talking. So paradigm shift. Paradigm shift is a rethinking. So it's a prioritizing of our values and our beliefs. So rather than being selfish and individualist, we might say, you know what, now I need to live for the glory of the collective. That's a paradigm shift. Away from selfish individualism, I'm just going to consume products that are for the glory of me. We're going to rethink it and say, it may not be as convenient to use public transportation, but it may be more earth-friendly. That it may be in the common good for me to rethink the mode of transportation that I use. It may be in the common good for us to rethink the urban planning of cities. Edmonton is much, much too large. Its footprint, its geography, right? It's too spread out. to be a functional city. The reason why we don't have an elaborate system of public transportation is because we've allowed that city to sprawl to the point that it's not a sustainable city. That we need to rethink how we develop cities so that we can avoid this future. So this is a bit of a warning, right? This cartoon is meant to be a warning. It's meant to be a warning to create a paradigm shift, to have us to rethink our priorities away from selfish individualism, because it's going to lead to our own death, towards something more sustainable. This is going to be a big part of the third unit of the year. They use things like the Smurf there to entice the audience, right? How do they suck us into the cartoon? Well, the cartoonist uses the Lego guy and McDonald's guy they put them in unfamiliar situations, right? We typically don't see a Smurf carrying a knife and a gun. We typically don't see the Nestle Quick Bunny, as an instrument of some kind of military agenda. So they draw something familiar in an unfamiliar setting to try to get us engaged into the cartoon and engaged in this conversation about our lifestyles. But we have this one we looked at yesterday. I just want to go over the ideological perspective again for this one, and then we'll give you some textbook time. So we're going to refer to this one as source 3, because in the set of 3 it would have been the third one. And again, we just get started with source 3 is a political cartoon. Just jump right in. What's on the page, right? If it had been a photograph, I would have said source 3 is a photograph. But it's a political cartoon, so I said source 3 is a political cartoon. We don't need to wax poetically. We need to just jump in. This is a formulaic, very engineered assignment. Source 3 is a political cartoon that focuses on one main character, the planet Earth. It is worth noting that the planet is drawn as a patient who is receiving a great deal of medical attention. And we can see that. On the surface, we can assume that the source is communicating an opinion regarding the extent to which the planet is suffering due to the activities of man. So this is what's getting at not only what's on the page literally, but again, why is it on the page? Why is it on the page? Because it's talking about that sentence, right? It's showing us an opinion about the extent to which the planet is suffering due to our activities. The source is no doubt inspired by observable changes in the planet. Another step we can do to analyze these sources is to say, what happened before the source? Put the source into a chain of events. What happened before the source to inspire the source to be drawn, or to be photographed, or to be created? So the source is no doubt inspired by observable changes in the planet. These changes have included climate change, mass animal extinction. Combined, many are seeing the environmental impact of our economic activities as potentially leading to a future where the biosphere will no longer support life. Simply put, if the planet dies, then we do as well. So that's the significance part, right? Why should we care about the source? At first glance, we may assume that the ideological perspective, we're using that term, of the cartoonist is hopeful, as the planet is receiving medical care, and there are signs like Happy Earth Day and Get Well Soon. This shows that mankind is aware of the issue. But when the viewer scans back and examines the source as a whole, we see the phrase, visit Earth while you still can. So one thing that's important about analyzing these sources is to deal with all of the key elements within the source. So there are these two signs that might be hopeful, but then when we scan back, we see the bigger picture that says, visit Earth while you still can. This inclusion, the inclusion of this makes the ideological perspective appear a lot more pessimistic. So it's important to try to not only announce, what is the solution that they're offering, but try to associate their ideological perspective with different tones like optimism, pessimism, realism, or later when you get into more political study, then you might use terms like liberal, conservative, radical, and reactionary. So what kind of family of thought does that perspective belong to? The cartoonist is suggesting that although we are now aware of the problems that economic globalization has created, perhaps it is too late, right? So, is it too late? It says 2030. Now, I think I missed that the first time I wrote this. So now that I see that 2030, then maybe it's not too late. Maybe the cartoonist is hoping that in the decade that we have left, we can change the future. We can Marty McFly this thing. We can go back in time and, do something so Biff doesn't take over the world. So that's why the license plate says 2030, and that changes the agenda of the cartoonist. Now the cartoonist is trying to inspire a much needed conversation about our current lifestyle and its impact on our future. There is some evidence that this pessimistic stance can be justified. For example, since 1970, it has been scientifically observed that all species are in decline. Every species on the planet, including mankind. Our numbers are up, but our collective health may be down. Added up, the health of the planet is at risk. The intended audience here would be those consumers and producers, along with the government policy makers, who may have an opportunity to reverse the trend. Due to the dark nature of the source, we can conclude the cartoonist isn't hopeful that we'll be able to respond in time. Not everyone would agree. Many transnationals, including global capitalists, would argue that the cartoonist is being unnecessarily and dangerously alarmist, and even suggest that the scientific evidence of climate change has been exaggerated to push a political agenda. With the potential of all life on the planet at risk, this appears to be an issue worthy of our attention. You notice one thing we didn't do in the source interpretation? We didn't give our opinion. In the -1 stream, in the assignment 1, we don't give our opinion about the source. In -2, they do a very similar assignment. They call it assignment 2, and we ask them for their opinion. We don't want your opinion on these 3 sources. What we'll end up doing is getting your opinion on the essay. Our -2 students don't write an essay, so we end up combining that part, that skill, with this assignment. So on this assignment, I never want you to write sentences and sentences about what you think. What you can do is write sentences and sentences about what others think. Al Gore might say this about this. Our premier, Jason Kenney, might say this. But we don't really care for what you believe, which is a little harsh for sure. So, having said that, that's the end of our topic today, which was this emergence of a global culture, cultural homogenization, and the topic allowed us to look at A1 sources. I'm going to end the video, and then you're going to do some textbook stuff.